Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And on this episode, I'm delighted to have with me Laurence Archer, lead guitarist with Grand Slam. Now, Grand Slam are releasing a new album, Wheel of Fortune, on June the 7th, literally tomorrow at the time of talking to Laurence here, and also Hit the Ground revised version of the album came out on May the 10th. Is that so? There's a lot of Grand Slam action going on at the moment, isn't there?
Yes, it's been a bit busy, and we've also been in the studio. I've just come back from UK. I live in Spain. I've just come back from UK. We've been doing a couple of special edition tracks and some bonus tracks for Japan. So yeah, it's been a bit of a busy, crazy
time,
and back to UK on Monday for the launch party of the album. So yeah, it's busy to say the least.
I want to just go back in time just for a bit of context for people that might not be fully aware of yourself and, Grand Slam, etc. I mean, whichever part of your career I dip into, whether it's Grand Slam or Stampede or UFO or anything, I can tell it's you. Even though each of those bands has a distinct guitar style from previous players or whatever, I can tell it's you. It transfers across each band that you've been in. I mean, who were your early influences?
Well, when I started playing, I was quite late. I started playing when I was about 15, but my father introduced me to, essentially it was Eric Clapton, which led me on to people like Peter Green, Jeff Beck. Those were really my early influences, and then obviously as time went on and I got a little bit more into the rock thing, latterly Randy Rhoads, Gary Moore was a big influence on me. I mean, I knew Gary recently. I got to know him pretty well. Toured with him in '82 with Stampede, and we had a little bit of a connection there. And but yeah, I would say Gary Moore more than anybody. Schenker, obviously, most of the go-tos that I think most guitar players of that era went to. I loved AC/DC and Angus's playing when I first started playing. I sort of gravitated a bit to that because it was quite bluesy and a sort of an extension of the sort of Clapton style. But yeah, and some of the blues players like B.B. King and those guys, So, but I think I probably tend to go to my go-to stuff or whoever I'm playing with, because it's me, it's just my character and the way I am. And it might be that, in actual fact, I'm probably less versatile than a lot of other guitar players, but I just play the way I play it. It comes from here rather than sort of anywhere else, really.
Well, I hadn't researched any of that. So that Clapton, Peter Green, Gary Moore, Schenker, all of them have a real sense of melody in their playing rather than about the number of notes they play. Although obviously they can, especially Moore and Schenker, can also turn up the dial for how many, but they're all based on melody, and that really kind of shines a light on your style, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the melodic element is very important to me anyway. It might be my era, but I mean, it's certainly an important part of everything. And there's an element of, I mean, before I'm a guitar player, really, I consider myself to be a writer more than anything. And the melodic element is something, when I write a batch of 20 songs, I mean, I'll throw 19 away because I won't be happy with the melodic element. It has to be right for me, and it has to be an earworm. And I sort of go through this process of playing playing these things to, mates and friends and other people in the industry and in the band, and see if it's something that they go out the room whistling to. And if they do, it's important to me. I mean, even my daughter on the new album, I played the first mix of There Goes My Heart off the new album, and she just keeps playing the guitar solo back to back. It's quite funny, but she just says she loves that bit. So, it's melody is important, I think.
Yeah, and I think you just said you are a writer. I mean, most of the songs, and many songs are written by yourself. And I think obviously if you're writing songs with really catchy choruses and melodies, then your guitar playing is going to come out from the same person. So that really comes across.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like any other guitar player. You have to stop yourself from doing all trying to do all the trick stuff and being as flashy as you can and all that. But there's many guitar players that are underrated because they don't do that. But what they do is they're fantastic at playing a guitar that fits the song. The guy out of Bryan Adams, the guy out of Tom Petty band, all those guys from, and it goes on. There are lots of great players out there, but they don't do anything flash. But what they do is do something perfect for the song. It complements the song, and that's what I try and do. That's what I try and do anyway.
So this version of Grand Slam came back together about 2016. Is that correct? Is that with Mark Stanway? Was he originally part of that?
Yeah, Mark. The 2016 edition, as it were, was really a one-off exercise, as in a couple of promoters that ran festivals, and particularly Sweden Rock, wanted Grand Slam to play Sweden Rock. Mm-hmm. And they called myself and Mark and said, would we put a band together to go and do it, which we did. But that was a sort of standalone effort, really. We did a couple of warm-up shows in the UK, I think, but it wasn't necessarily connected to what I did in 2018, because when I came back I was in Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, the French Caribbean, filming at the time, and it's been my goal for many years to re-record the songs that I wrote with Phil properly, because I didn't like the sort of work in progress demos that were basically, well, for want of a better word, stolen out of the little studio in Phil's back garden when he passed. So yeah. I wasn't happy with those, and I wasn't part of those being released. And I'm sure Phil wouldn't be happy about them being released either, because there were so many editions of the things we were writing, because we were literally going in every day and changing stuff and trying different elements and stuff. But it's been my goal for 35 years, really, to find the right time and place to record the songs as they would have ended up on an album at the time if we'd been given that chance. So the 2018 thing was really stemmed, the guys in the band really stemmed from, I did a 3G show, a three guitar show, and I flew back from Guadeloupe to do it, and I put the band together, which included the guys that are in the band now, specifically Mike and Benji, and I just knew those guys were the right guys for the band. And then when I came back later that year in October, we went straight into rehearsals we basically went in for 2 weeks. I had most of the songs sorted, so we went in for a couple of weeks and then went straight into the studio and started recording the Hit the Ground album.
I mean, that must have been very emotional for you, because you were there when obviously Phil was kind of in a very tricky time for his career, and now you've revisited those songs and you've done them justice with the people around you that you kind of play with and love and trust. How did that feel? Did you feel literally like that Phil was just looking over your shoulder saying this is
to be
good?
honest, I did. I mean, I did to some extent, and I sort of, you go. I went into this thing with a bit of trepidation in that you never know how the true fans and the Phil and the Lizzie and the Grand Slam fans from back in the day are going to react to something like that. But I wanted to give the fans a true representative of the songs. That was my goal, and to hear myself and Phil's music properly. But yeah, it was a very emotional thing. I've been waiting a long time to do it. And I really wanted it to be right, hence picking the right people and doing it for me at the right time for me, really. In the early days when Phil passed, I didn't really get involved in any of the, let's say, tribute to Phil things that went on, because I didn't feel comfortable. At the end of Phil's life, I was very, very close to him, and I sort of didn't do anything with those tribute things like the Vibe in Dublin and various other things until about 7 or 8 years later. In fact, I think longer than that. But, I didn't feel comfortable jumping on the back of on the bandwagon of that. I just wanted the songs to be out there, and and again with the name Grand Slam, I went round and round the trees trying to, is this the right thing to do? Is it the right, should I call it something else? But when I recorded the songs, I thought it was the right thing to do, call it Grand Slam, and move the whole band into a different era, move it forward. And I didn't, the other thing in my head is I didn't really want to do it like a project that was going to be like a one-off thing. I wanted to put a band together that had some longevity, which it does. The guys in the band are 200% there. Everybody's working as hard as they can to get this thing off the ground. So yeah, I think the whole thing was an emotional process. But when I started when I started getting into the mixing of Hit the Ground, everything started to fall in place. I could hear everything that I had in my head and started to come together, and I was very, very happy with what we had. Yeah.
I think what it does is also help people that may not have been totally aware that at the time Grand Slam, and this is the time in the mid-80s, just how big a project this was and where it could have possibly gone. I mean, even Phil wanted to make sure when you played live that it was more about the future than it was about the past. And
exactly, yeah.
I mean,
when we started Grand Slam, Phil had basically been on tour with Lizzie and then gone to Sweden to do a solo tour with John and Brian playing with him. But when he came back and he called me and he said about putting the band together, I mean, he was incredibly enthusiastic and positive about moving forward. It was just a shame that, there was a lot of negative press going on regarding partying and drug taking and various other things that basically put a little bit of a halt to all the record negotiations. But we were still going through that at the time when Phil passed. I went to America and did some playing with Huey, and then we put a couple of songs down, and Huey Lewis was going to produce the album. So we still had that in mind, but it was all very positive. But unfortunately, towards the end of it, Phil wasn't in a great way, I would say. that was the first time I'd noticed him not being in a good place. Was sort of late '85.
I mean, the thing Lizzie Camp obviously believed in the songs, because obviously 2 or 3 of them were kind of reworked, weren't they? And went out under the Thin Lizzy name.
Yeah, I mean, people that don't know the story, but the song Dedication I actually wrote when I was with Stampede. But I was, at the time I got together with Phil, I was sort of in preparation of putting songs together for what was supposed to be the next Stampede album. And I sort of took the song to Phil. But also the songs that we wrote together have been released, I know that, but Dedication in particular was a song I wrote like back in 1982, and Phil wanted to do it, and we only recorded it. Phil only actually sung it once on tape, as it were, and that was at an EMI session that we did. We did like showcase EMI batch of demos, and I put the backing track down, and Phil came in and basically sang on it. That's the only other recording of it, but unfortunately it was a little bit underhand by the Lizzy management and Universal, in that they basically released the song as a lost Lizzy song. I think just to gain a little bit of interest on the dynamic of selling the album. Regarding it was called Dedication, and they put a video together. They cut together to make it look like it was them playing in 1976. So it was a bit of a strange one, really. But I can understand why they did it. But obviously, when they did that, the last thing they wanted to do is put me down as a credit on the album, because that would have given the game away.
Yes,
so
true.
It's something I had to fight and go through to get my rights and recognition. But I already had the song registered with all the right associations, back in 1982. So they didn't really have a leg to stand on legally. But it's a difficult one to try and explain to people, and especially with things like Military Man. When Gary did Military Man,
which a lot of people may not realize that that's one of your songs, which is, and it's still in your set now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, it was a song that basically wrote with Phil, and the majority of it came together in the studio and in the rehearsal room, and we played it live, and we did record it. In fact, Gary was played the demo. It was only because he was doing out in the fields, wasn't it? I think, and as he needed a B single, and I think Phil suggested Military Man because it had a military theme, like Out in the Fields, as a B-side. But again, I wasn't credited on it, so I wasn't particularly happy about that either. But weirdly, the demo that Gary heard, Gary came up to me. We were at a magazine launch party, and Gary came up to me, and I'd just come back from America, and he had heard the demos I did with Huey and said, "Oh, I love the guitar playing, man. It's great." And I love the guitar playing on Military Man. And so, Anyway, how's your luck? That's the thing. There's lots of sharks out there, and the industry isn't nice at times.
No, they're very, very true. Very true. So here we go. That's Hit the Ground, but Wheel of Fortune is a brand new Grand Slam album, isn't it? And obviously, there are elements of Phil and the Lizzy kind of in the background, especially There Goes My Heart, which opens up with a joyous, most positive twin lead, and what a great chorus. This is like a homage, and it's almost saying like thank you to Phil as you kind of almost move on.
Yeah, I mean, what I say to people is that nothing is done particularly by design, but through my experience with Phil and as a kid growing up, in about 1976 when there was Sight and Sound in concert, we had all these bands, everybody from Sabbath, UFO, Thin Lizzy, AC/DC on these programs that I think they run like a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And I was like a lot of people, I was influenced in my writing then. When I got together with Phil, we got on very well as writers because I was already sort of in that same camp as Phil, really, regarding the writing. So my writing hasn't really changed since back in the day, and I still hear and I'm still influenced by Lizzie and UFO and all those people that I was listening to back in the day. But yeah, it has ended up being a little bit of a twin guitar homage to Phil. But if it sounds like Lizzie or it sounds like Phil or it sounds like anything, it's not done by design. That's just something that comes out of me naturally. And I don't like to try and stem anything that comes out.
No,
when it's just the way it is. And these days there's so much music out there. I mean, everything you listen to, you can say it sounds like something else, to be honest. But I'm just trying to be true to myself regarding the writing. There's songs on the album that don't sound anything like.
There are. I'll mention a couple of those in a minute. But There Goes My Heart, a great video, by the way. And of course, it sounds like it's going to be about the girl, but it's about the car, isn't it?
It is about the car, which there's a bit of a twist in the story, yeah. And there's a bit of we tried to do the video as humorously as we could.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good fun doing it. We did it out here in Spain near my house. We just flew a couple of camera guys out and we did it locally. And the new single that's come out yesterday,
Come Together, is it?
Come Together.
Yeah.
That was equally shot in the same time period. We did it all over about 4 days.
Yeah.
Here in Spain on the Marina Alta near Valencia.
And you mentioned earlier about when you're songwriting, it's about thinking of, can you whistle the tune An Earworm? That brings us very neatly to Star-Crossed Lovers, because that is absolutely an earworm, isn't it? It just starts with a chorus that just wants you to wave a flag and punch the air.
Yeah. I mean, that song, I had the melodic element of it completely, and it was actually probably the last song. We had like 1 day rehearsal before we started making the album, and it sort of came together very quickly. I didn't have any lyrical content apart from the I had all the melody content,
yeah,
and I had the verse content and some of the lyrics, but the chorus, I just had this thing in my head, and so it certainly is an earworm, and I'm surprised by how many people have heard the song and love it. Everybody from the video crew that came out, we actually have started. We've got about a quarter of the way through the video for that, amongst others. So, yeah. I mean, we rehearsed it up because next time we're out on the road, I think we're going to Sweden next, and I think we're hoping to do it because obviously it'll be post-album release. So,
yeah,
and it sounds great live. It's a great live track.
Yeah, I mean, Come Together in Harlem, the new single is fantastic. Nice, wonderful mid-paced rock song. And again, I know there is a Lizzie feel to that as well. So really, I think it's the melody and everything. It's great.
Yeah. There's parts of Let's Come Together which are it was part of an old song that was around at the time when Phil and I were writing back in '84. But that's the only thing on the album that's not new, not 100% new, as it were. But everything else is brand new. Yeah.
I've got to mention, I think it could have been the first single, I'm not sure, or the third, Spitfire. Now,
Spitfire,
what a riff! That you must. That's one of those riffs that as soon as you came up with it, you must have thought, this is gonna work.
Well, in my head, everything works, but yeah, I actually wrote it in this room where where I'm sitting now. My little sort of studio here. I just put my looper on and I was messing around and put it together. I got Mike over here, and we started putting some stuff together on it. And we were excited about it straight away. It was you can tell when something's going to be a bit of a raunchy.
It's going to be a live favorite, isn't it? It's just it is.
We just did it in Paris. Actually, we just did it in Paris, and it probably went down the best song out of the set, which we were really surprised about because it's the first time we played it live. It was stonking, and it sounds great. But I mean, there's some songs that when you record them and you, even if you've run through them to go to pre-production to put them together, you don't really run it as a complete song. And then when you come out and sort of do pre-production rehearsals for a tour, it's like, are we going to be able to do this? But it turns out great. I mean, it sounds awesome live. I mean,
I imagine it's the kind of song that I think I just have this feeling that it's going to be in your life set forever. I think it's going to be something that just people will either, maybe one day it'll end up being an encore number or the last track you do before the encore, but it's that kind of song, isn't it?
It's, I think it's, as far as its success as a single, it's a bit of a slow burner, but I think it's going to stick around for a long time. I think it will carry on and gain popularity the more we get the coverage and the albums out. I think it will just gain popularity because everybody seems to love it. I played it to quite a few people before we actually released it, and everybody had positive things to say about it. So yeah, it was cool.
It's just great to have a rock song that literally has a real focus on the riff, an opening riff, and everybody piles in afterwards. And also lyrically, with the D-Day anniversary, call it Spitfire and everything, and the video and the lyrically, it's absolutely ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, well, we try to put a story behind everything, and if you listen to the lyrical content of Spitfire, even though it's a fast, heavy riff type song, the song is about all these young guys that were conscripted to fly the Spitfire when they were like 18 years old, and then put up there in the air, with very little training, and then had a very short life expectancy. It was like something like 7 days or something stupid. And the bravery of those guys and how young they were, and that is what the song's about, and how it must have felt for those guys. So it does. It has quite a deep storyline, even though it's on top of it, it's basically get your rocks off and go mad song. But yeah, it's we tried to make everything have a storyline, not so much political. I mean, well, on the first album we had Hit the Ground, the song, and it does touch into the sort of overpopulation and Putin and the worries of everybody in the world and all that. But on this album we wrote about the Spitfire thing, and it was really about the pilots of Spitfire. And we've got a song on there called Trail of Tears, which is about American Indians. And it it sort of it goes over the whole storyline of Native American Indians and what they went through. But we're not doing it as a political statement. We're just doing it as a story. It's a storyline.
Two of my favorite songs, because this is where I feel the album has many different kind of emotions and kind of flavors, if you like. And it's towards the end, it kind of changes, especially when you get Pirate Song, Afterlife, and Wheel of Fortune itself. I mean, Pirate Song is an epic song. It's like a little theatre in itself, really. Great story, but wonderful guitar playing from yourself as well.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I mean that we are, and we have been putting a video together for the Pirate Song, which I'm really looking forward to finishing, because it's like a half animated video and a half real life.
Yeah.
But we've done some interesting stuff with it. We shot in lots of different places. We shot here in Spain, and the animator has been doing a great job. Unfortunately, he couldn't finish it because he became ill. But we've now added some more live content to it, and we're just waiting for the final edit of that, actually. So we've been really busy on the visual side, because we think it's an important thing to tell the story as well as anything else, So, we've got There Goes Your Heart, There Goes Your Heart. We've got Spitfire. We've got Come Together. We've got the Pirate Song. We've done a video of The Feeling Is Strong, but we've done it as an acoustic version. So it's like almost like a live video in the studio. And we've got Star-Crossed Lovers, which is basically basically a third of a video that we've got to finish off.
That's another song with a great chorus as well. Really catchy.
Yeah, I didn't know how people would take that, because I didn't know whether it would be too poppy for people. But it's a powerful song when you play it live. It's a powerful song. So
I think people want. We live in dark times, and I think people want music that lifts them up. And I think that song, I didn't think of it being poppy. I just thought it was a great rock song with a great chorus, and the way it comes in. Oh, obviously, each song, the way this album is sequenced, kind of takes you on a journey. So it's really been well put together, and how you chose which track goes where.
Yeah, I mean, some things are quite dark on it. Afterlife is quite
that is quite dark. Yeah. But it's an epic. That's an epic song again, with some really beautiful playing.
Yeah.
Are all the lyrics by Mike? Because he's a great storyteller.
Mostly on Afterlife. Yes.
Yeah.
Afterlife was generally Mike. I had I had everything melodically, and I think I had the bridge written completely. Again, Mike came here, and I went through the melodic element of it, and then he went away and penned it. He did a lot of penning actually in the studio when we were recording the backing tracks. So, but we knew what the subject matter was, and we have the other one, which seems to be a lot of people's favourite that have heard it, is The Feeling Is Strong, which is a song I've had around for a long time, and I've been messing with it in my hotel rooms around the world for quite some time. But I'm very glad the way that came out, and that is dedicated to a very close friend of ours' daughter, who unfortunately passed away from a rare disease when she was shining bright. As a very, very bright and to be successful young lady. So there's, we've got Feeling Is Strong, and again with the whole reason the album is called Wheel of Fortune is really about, if you if you listen to Wheel of Fortune, you'll hear every reference to any game show, that you've ever heard. And really the message is, there's always that thing in game shows of like, have a look at what you could have won, and that's really the message in the song, because it's about, when I first put Grand Slam together, we had a lot of people interested and a lot of people trying to jump on the bandwagon. And we, for want of a better word, we got ripped off 2 or 3 times, and once or twice quite badly, which cost us a lot of money. And we wanted to put a message out basically to these people that have, not been true to us or true to themselves. And it's a bit like if you've been more faithful to the band and more true about what your goal was, then, you could still be here with us enjoying
what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the song itself is got the only kind of real ballad on the album, but it's a really, when I was listening to it the other day, I was thinking it's the kind of thing that would be again another live track. It's the one where people would wave their arms around and flaps and stuff. It's a bit of it's an anthemic. Yes, it is. It is.
Thing. Yeah. I mean, that's another part I say of my when I'm writing. I visualize the song in that way. I visualize the song of us on a big stage, playing in front of lots of people, singing it back to us. That's part and parcel of my sort of writing ethic, really, I suppose. Hearing or imagining people singing it back to you. And if you write something that you can't see people singing back to you, then, I'd probably drop it. But, I was very happy with the way that song turned out.
No, it's beautiful.
And it's like the pirate song, just going back to the storyline things on stuff. Pirate song, for in between my rock world, I worked in the film industry, and I spent a lot of time out in Corfu filming a TV program for a couple of years. And I'd see all these traditional Greek players every night with the balalaikas and their other Greek instruments playing in this corner of the restaurant. And I said, what are these songs about? What's the traditional Greek song? And they said, well, most of it's about piracy, because between the islands and Corfu and everything, there were in Albania and all that, it was all about piracy. So that's where the pirate song came from, because I went home that night. They traditionally tune with a drone D on their instruments. I went back, I put a drone D on the guitar, and it came out of nowhere. And before I knew it, I had the verse and the chorus and the
wow.
So messed around with it for quite a long time, but basically it's ended up being exactly the song that I wrote in the hotel, to be honest. But apart from the chant at the end, we wanted to make it a little bit theatrical with the big chant at the end, and we've just shot some video of that, so that should be fun when that comes out.
Yeah, that's how it, as I said, it sounds like it's kind of like a bit of theatre for your ears. So that will be really interesting. I really look forward to seeing that. That sounds great.
I mean, we are wondering how we're going to do it live, but I'm sure we can.
I'm sure you can. So the album Wheel of Fortune is out on the 7th of June, and it's available as a 2 CD version, and also, is it a coloured vinyl? Is it double vinyl, single vinyl?
Yeah, there's a double vinyl.
Oh, right, okay.
And there's the Wheel of Fortune album and the Hit the Ground album revised. The double album has both the albums on it, and they're all coloured vinyls. They're all splatter vinyls, which look great. I've managed to see one in real life, and they look great. And I think similarly with the CD, it actually has the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
On the CD. So, and we've got it on cassette.
Oh,
Yeah. So if you go to the store,
is it
you'll actually see.
grandslamrocks.com? Yeah.
Yes, grandslamrocks.com. If you go to releases and stuff like that on the Grand Slam Rocks, then you'll see the different items. There's some merch on there from the record company, and there's also the cassette, which is, it looks funky, man. It looks really funky.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I've still got some in the garage. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, I know many people have still got a cassette player in their car. That's
that's true. That's very true. So when the album comes out, have you got live dates being queued up for this year?
At the moment, we've just basically sort of joined up with a new agent, and we've last year we booked. So we just did Paris last weekend. We're off to Sweden next month, and we are in Ireland in August, and we're in France in October. We're hoping for more things to be added, and we're hoping for a couple of more festivals to be added. And then at some point, I'm hoping that we'll be doing, a proper tour to back the album up. But, it's early days for us. It's been difficult for us because, we're a new band. That's what I want to put out there to people,
Yeah.
We're as much a new band as we are a retrospective, as in, I've released songs that I wrote with Phil back in '84, and I've kept the name. But in actual fact, we're a new band, and that's what I want to, make sure.
I think, Laurence, that completely comes across, because obviously I played the revisited album, which is obviously a homage and from that time. But this new one, I mean, because one of my questions was thinking this must be a different approach to writing, because it sounds like a brand new band. There are elements of like your Lizzie period, but why wouldn't there be? Because you were there, and this is how you write, and it's how you've grown up, and your style has come together. But I would say that this is definitely, for those of you watching, listening, this is a brand new band. It's a great album. Tracks like Spitfire can really illustrate that. It's a new Wheel of Fortune, Pirate Song, Afterlife come together, and it's a great album.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's exactly what we want to hear. That people can hear that. That it's not just dragging up old stuff and being a retrospective band. I mean, the unfortunate thing is in the industry, it's hard to get the gravitation. When the new world, they sort of always look at stuff and go, well, what is it? Is it an old band, or is it a new band, or what are you doing? But we're trying to pull our thing out of that sort of quandary, get it out there as a new thing. And once we break the barrier, then we'll be out there a lot more. Obviously, the main goal is to go out and play live. That's our love, and that's the only way we can exist. Because making albums the way I like to make albums and everything else, it's not cheap. So
no, it's not. And so again, to all of my listeners and viewers, that by all means, stream it to check it out, but to support the artist and support the art and this wonderful music, buy a CD or buy an album or buy both.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you can get if you're into buying the hard copy rather than just sticking it on your phone, then it helps the artists, it helps the record companies, it helps the whole industry at the end of the day, because nobody's earning anything from streaming.
No, and also it also brings the audience closer to you. To actually hold the record. I know it's kind of that kind of thing about you've got the album. It really brings you close.
That tactile thing of having the album and looking at the pictures. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Going into a record store and actually physically looking at those things and getting excited about playing the album, and imagining yourself there in the studio or with pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean. And it's in your hand. It's a real
Very
thing.
True.
Yeah.
I've got one last question, and I just want to know, out of curiosity, what would be your favourite Thin Lizzy album if you had to pick one?
To be honest, I'm a bit of a live and dangerous man.
Yeah.
My history of favourite albums goes through, Strangers in the Night, UFO, Frampton Comes Alive, which was one of my
brilliant album
go-to albums back in the day, and I don't really remember, but there was an album by Mahogany Rush.
Yes, I do. Yeah, great album.
Yeah, I mean, I like that whole live thing, and the Frampton Comes Alive is one of my favorite albums, and obviously Strangers in the Night, but Live and Dangerous, I think it sort of sums up everything you need to know about Lizzy, really.
It also, I think, finally shows that because Thin Lizzy were one of those bands that were a rock band, but also could equally be on top of the pops as well as any. And I think so. Going back to you said you wonder whether one song was a bit too poppy. I think you're going in the right direction because music.
Well, I mean,
cross barriers.
The goal would be to break down a few barriers and spread the word and get us maybe get our profile a little bit wider rather than just in one thing, and that would be a lovely goal if it was possible. But yeah, the only other thing I would say is any Lizzy album that had Gary on it, because I love Gary.
Of course,
I thought Gary was a lot of people thought he was a bit off, but when you got to know him, he was a lovely guy and obviously enormous talent.
Totally agree. Well, thanks very much, Laurence, for all of your time. The album Wheel of Fortune by Grand Slam is out on June the 7th, 2 CD or double vinyl, and from grandslamrocks.com. And also you're on Facebook, aren't you, for people want to find out all your latest news?
We're on Facebook, Grand Slam Rocks, Instagram, Grand Slam Rocks. I think we're on all the social medias. Yeah. And the record company is Silver Lining through Warner Brothers. So, if you want to get hold of the album, I'm pretty sure there must be links within their websites too.
Okay, well, I'll share them underneath it as well when it goes out. So thanks very much, Laurence, and thanks for all your time. So talk to you again, hopefully in the future.
Lovely talking to you, man. Lovely talking to you. Take care, and thanks for all the positive.
No problem at all. Thank you. Bye-bye. A huge thank you to my guest, Laurence Archer, from the band Grand Slam. The album Wheel of Fortune is out now, and it's absolutely fantastic. There are elements, as we said in the discussion, where the relationship with Phil Lynott is there, especially the opening song, There Goes My Heart. It is a joyous kind of romp through kind of Thin Lizzy influenced music. However, as I talked to Laurence and I've listened to the album several times since I finished the interview, I think it's the band moving forwards now. Laurence is a fantastic melodic guitar player. All his influences, Gary Moore, a bit of Clapton, Michael Schenker. It's about melody. And so as we move through the album, songs like Afterlife and Wheel of Fortune are kind of epic and quite different in their structure. However, the one track I just want to end on is Spitfire. Which at the time of me talking now and after talking to Laurence, it does have the best Friday night riff of the year. One of those songs with a riff that do you remember those times, everybody? You're getting ready, you've come home from work, your mum and dad have made you tea, you're going out to meet your mates and you're putting some music on before you catch the bus to go into town, and you want something to get you in the right frame of mind for Friday night. Spitfire is one of those tracks. And as I've said before, we always have to keep our sense of wonder. So so when I hear music like that, I'm barely 16, really. Anyway, thanks again to Laurence, and thank you for listening and watching to this podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast itself, or you can go to YouTube and subscribe there. Visit the website at nowspinning.co.uk. You can become a patron, you can be a YouTube member, you can support us in many, many ways. Wherever there is a social media platform, Now Spinning Magazine is there as well. Music is the healer and the doctor. Buy a record, buy a CD, support the artist. Keep spinning those discs, and I'll see you all very, very soon.